When death steals the future, it does not only take a person. It takes a whole timeline. It takes the wedding you thought you'd attend, the birthdays you assumed would come, the trips you had half planned, the arguments you hadn't had yet, and the reconciliations that would have followed. The Christmas mornings you pictured in your head years before they ever arrived. You lose what was, yes, but even more painfully, you lose what was supposed to be. People around you understand the first part. They bring flowers, say they're sorry, talk about memories, about the good times, about the past. But there is a quieter layer of grief that most do not see, and it is this. You are mourning a future that existed only in your mind, yet felt absolutely real. You had scenes in your head. You had a sense of course we'll be there. You had seasons laid out like a map. When we retire, when the kids grow up, when we finally have time, when this is over, we'll. And then it wasn't over. It ended in a place you never imagined. Death came in the middle of the story and simply closed the book. At Christmas, this kind of grief becomes even sharper. This season isn't just about what is here. It is drenched in expectations of what should be. It is about every year, about tradition, about continuity, about next time and see you next Christmas. When death enters, all of that language feels like a lie. You hear people talking about plans for the coming year, about resolutions, about next Christmas we should, and somewhere inside, a voice quietly says, not everyone gets a next Christmas. You know that now. Psychology has a term for part of what you're feeling, shattered assumptions. It describes what happens when your basic beliefs about how life works are violently broken. You believed, perhaps without ever saying it out loud, that certain people would be there for certain events. You believed that time would unfold roughly the way you imagined. You believed that if someone seemed healthy enough, young enough, stable enough, life would wait. Now you do not trust time. You do not trust later. You do not trust that the people sitting at the table will always be there. It's not just sadness, it's disorientation. You are walking down a road, your eyes on the horizon, and suddenly the road ended at a cliff. You're left standing there, looking down, looking back, not sure how to move forward, when the path you thought you were on no longer exists. You grieve big future events, of course, the weddings, the grandchildren, the anniversaries, the trips, but it's often the small future things that cut deepest. The way you thought you'd still be calling them for advice. The way you assumed they'd be sitting in their usual spot at Christmas, complaining about something predictable. The way you pictured years of small rituals, Sunday calls, birthday texts, send me a photo when you arrive, tell me how it went, stretching on without an end date. You feel cheated. They were robbed of time, and you were robbed right along with them. And you carry something else that's hard to admit out loud? Envy. Not just envy of people who still have their person, although that's there too, but envy of people who still believe, deeply and innocently, that their future is guaranteed. You watch them talk about, in 5 years will, or one day when we're old and gray, and a part of you feels like someone who has discovered a secret that nobody wants to hear. The future is not a contract. It is a possibility. And sometimes that possibility is canceled without warning. So what do you do when death steals the future? The first instinct is often to freeze. If the vision you had is gone, it can feel impossible to imagine anything else. You might find yourself stuck at the point of rupture, replaying the moment everything changed, the diagnosis, the accident, the phone call, the last breath. Your mind keeps circling it, trying to understand, trying to rewrite it, trying to bargain with something that no longer exists. You keep saying on some level, no, this is not where the story ends. Give me back the other version. But there is no other version now. And accepting that feels like a second death. You're not just burying a person. You're burying who you thought you would become with them. You're burying the version of yourself who didn't know this pain. And in the middle of all this, Christmas lights blink in the windows and people talk about hope and joy and new beginnings. It can feel like the world is pushing you to look on the bright side while you're still standing in the dark. Grief after a stolen future comes with a specific kind of anger. Anger at the timing, anger at the unfairness, anger at all the phrases that now sound cruel. You have your whole life ahead of you. Everything will work out. You never know what the future holds. You know exactly what the future no longer holds. That is the problem. It's important to say this. You are not wrong or bitter for feeling this way. Your reaction is not a failure of gratitude or faith. It is a normal response to having your life ripped out of its expected shape. There is a psychological wound here that goes beyond missing. It is the wound of having your sense of continuity broken. The human mind likes to link past, present, and future into a story that makes sense. Death, especially when it feels premature or sudden, tears through that narrative, like fire through paper. So now, you face two tasks. Both are unfair. Both are heavy. Is to mourn the person who is gone. The second is to mourn the life you thought you would live with them. Most people only acknowledge the first. The second operates in the shadows. It shows up when you see a couple your age laughing together. When you watch someone your parents' age dancing slowly at a Christmas party. When you see siblings, friends, grandparents, children, whole families moving through time, the way you assumed you would. You are not just sad for what you lost. You are grieving what you will never get to have. That grief is real. It deserves to be honored, not minimized. So how do you live now? What does Christmas mean in a life where the future feels vandalized? One temptation is to shut down all long-term thinking, to live only day to day, not in the healthy, mindful way people talk about, but in a protective, defensive way. If I don't dream too far ahead, life can't yank it away from me again. Another temptation is the opposite, to cling desperately to plans, to schedule everything, to grasp at control so hard that your fingers hurt. If I organize every detail, if I watch closely enough, if I stay anxious, nothing will blindside me again. Both are understandable. Both are trying to give you back a sense of safety. But real safety in a human life isn't built from denial or control. It's built from something much more fragile and courageous. Accepting that the future is uncertain, and choosing to love, plan, and hope anyway. That is not easy. It may feel impossible right now, so you don't start with the rest of your life. You start with something much smaller. One season, one day, one moment. This Christmas, instead of forcing yourself to be over it or forcing yourself to pretend the future doesn't exist, you might try something different. You admit quietly to yourself, yes, death has stolen the future I imagined. It took away the version of my life that had you in it. That is true. That is cruel. That hurts in ways I can't even name. And then you add, but it did not erase every possible future. It did not erase every possible meaning. It did not erase my capacity to live, love, and be changed. This is not a positive thinking trick. It's a hard adult truth. When one future is destroyed, you are left with rubble, yes, but also with raw material. Not the material you wanted, not the shape you chose, but something. You might feel guilty at the idea of building a new life, as if moving forward is an act of betrayal, as if designing another future is like admitting that the stolen one didn't matter. But think of it this way. If the person you lost loved you, would they want the rest of your life to be an empty hallway leading back to them and stopping there? Or would they want your love for them to shape how you live, not freeze whether you live? When death steals the future, it also can sharpen what is truly important in the present. You find yourself listening more carefully when someone talks. You notice the warmth of a hand on your shoulder. You pay attention when people laugh, when they sigh, when they say, "I'm tired," or "I'm okay," in that particular way. You become aware in a painfully clear way that nothing is guaranteed. And if you let it, that awareness can slowly, over time, become not only a source of fear, but also a source of seriousness, depth, and tenderness. You stop postponing certain words. "I'm proud of you." "I miss you." "You matter to me." "I'm sorry." I love you. You understand that saying these things does not protect anyone from death, but it protects you, a little, from the regret of having buried them unsaid. You also have to allow yourself another right, the right to dream again, even if your dreams are humbler, softer, quieter than before. Maybe you once pictured big, elaborate future scenes, and now all you can imagine is sitting peacefully with someone you care about, drinking something warm, talking about nothing. That's okay. The size of your dreams is not the measure of your courage. The fact that you are willing to imagine anything at all after what you've lived through is already a sign of bravery. At some point, you will be tempted to ask a question no one can answer. Why? Why them? Why then? Why like this? Why us? Why now? Why at Christmas? Why before we could? You may find spiritual answers, philosophical answers, or none at all, but psychologically, there is one why that offers a clearer path. Given that this has happened, why will I choose to keep living as fully as I can, instead of letting this be the end of my own story too? That question doesn't demand that you feel ready. It doesn't demand that you feel hopeful. It just asks for a direction. Will you allow death to steal only the future you shared with them? Or will you let it also steal every future version of you that could still exist? You don't have to answer this once and for all. You answer it in tiny ways. When you get out of bed on a day you'd rather not. When you attend an event even though you know their absence will ache. When you participate in a Christmas ritual and allow both tears and warmth to be there at the same time. When you dare to invest in something, learning, friendship, love, even though now you know that nothing is immune to loss. Every such act is a quiet refusal, a way of saying death took what it took. It does not get everything. And in the middle of that, you are allowed to set boundaries. You can step out of celebrations that are too loud for your grief this year. You can say no to forced cheer. You can choose small, private rituals over big, overwhelming gatherings. You can honor the stolen future by holding a space for it, a candle, a photo, a written letter to the life you thought you'd have, and then gently turning your face back to the life you actually do have. There will be days when you feel like you have no future at all, only a long stretch of time to be endured. That feeling is a symptom of grief, not a reliable prediction. You couldn't imagine this pain until you were in it. You also cannot yet imagine all the ways it will change, soften, and reshape you over time. When death steals the future, it feels like everything is over. But slowly, quietly, stubbornly, the present keeps arriving. Morning after morning, breath after breath, and each time it does, you are faced with the same impossible, holy choice: to exist only as a survivor of what you lost, or to exist also as a carrier of what you learned. This Christmas may never match the ones you once imagined. The life ahead will never be the exact future you planned with them. That truth will always hurt, but as unfair as it is, you are still here. You still have a mind that can remember, a heart that can ache and still beat, hands that can hold and comfort, words that can be spoken to someone who needs them. The future you once saw is gone. That cannot be changed. What can change is what you do with the years that remain, not to replace them, not to erase them, but to live in a way that quietly says, death stole our shared future, but it will not steal the meaning of your life and mine. It will not steal every Christmas, every possibility, every tomorrow. I will carry you forward, not as a chain that traps me in the past, but as a thread woven into everything I become. When death steals the future, it is allowed to break you. What it does not get to decide is whether you stay broken forever.